In Parshas Teruma we learn about building the Mishkan, Ve'asu Mishkan Ve'shachanti B'Soicha, and in Parshas Ekev we learn about benching. Is there any connection between the two? Shulchan Aruch Chaim Siman Kuf Pei, we learn that one has to cover the knife on the table the time that he benches. Does this apply to everybody? Morning and night, weekdays and Shabbos? Let's see. So in Shulchan Aruch Chaim Kuf Pei is where we find this halacha, and the Beis Yosef brings two reasons for it. First, because the Shulchan is similar to the Mizbeach, and regarding the Mizbeach, the pasuk in Parshas Kisavo says, "Lo tanif aleihem bazel," no metal over the Mizbeach, and therefore there's the minhag to cover or to remove the knife at the time that one benches. He brings it from the Rokeach, from Shibbolei Haleket, and from the Abudram. The other reason which he brings the Beis Yosef is because once there was a person who, in the middle of benching, got to Boine Yerushalayim, to the blessing, and then he remembered the sorrow of the destruction of Beis Hamikdash, and the Yerushalayim is destroyed. He took the knife and he stabbed himself in the stomach and he died, and therefore the minhag is to remove the knife from the table. Continues the Beis Yosef and says, Banu Shabbos in Yontif, you don't have to do this. Regarding this second reason, the source is from Rabbeinu Simcha. And Reb Chaim Kanievsky was once asked, because there was a strange individual who conducted himself in this manner, he took the knife and he was so upset about the destruction, he stabbed himself and he died because of that. All of us have to remove or cover the knives? And Reb Chaim Kanievsky says the halacha is for normal people. He was normal. We are the strange people. Why are we not bothered, like that person, by Churban Beis Hamikdash? In any event, the Magen Avraham writes, the reason on Shabbos you don't have to cover the knife is because we said the reason to cover. Shulchan is like the Mizbeach. One's table is like the Mizbeach. And regarding the Mizbeach, it says, Lo tanif aleihem bazel. Don't put a metal over the Mizbeach when you're building it. And since on Shabbos you don't build the Mizbeach, so one doesn't need to cover the knife on Shabbos. The Taz over there asks, according to the reason, that it's because of a person that we mentioned before, that he was so upset that he stabbed himself. So what's the difference if it's a weekday or a Shabbos? And he says this Maisa actually happened on Shabbos, and Chazal decreed that one should not do it, and obviously that will apply on Shabbos as well. The Beis Yosef and the Levush writes that according to this reason, even on Shabbos and Yontif, one would have to cover the knife. But we should ask, based on the opinion of the Magen Avraham, that on Shabbos one does not have to cover the knife when he benches, because one doesn't build the Mizbeach on Shabbos. So according to that, if you eat at night on a weekday, also you don't need to cover the knife because you don't build the Mizbeach at night. The Rambam Paskins, Hilchos Beis Sabchira Perek Aleph Halacha Yud Beis. In Boinin Beis Hamikdash Balayla. One doesn't build Beis Hamikdash at night because the Pasuk says, Uvi Yom Hakim Moshe Es HaMishkan. Moshe erected the Mishkan during the day, not at night. By Yom Hakimin Velo Balayla, says the Rambam. And in fact, Sefer Revi Dazav writes that one doesn't need to cover the knife if he eats at night, because one doesn't build the Mizbeach at night. But the minhag of the world is not like that, and the question is, why is that? Why do people cover the knife when they eat at night? So the Meshech Chochma, the other Parshas Yisro, he explains, you're not allowed to build the Mishkan at night, but you're allowed to build the Bama. And the Shulchan is like a Bama, the Mizbeach that one can build outside Beis Hamikdash. Because Beis Hamikdash cannot be built at night, but the Mizbeach was allowed to build at night. That's why you have to cover or remove the knife even at night. That's what the Aruch LaNer writes as well in Sukkah Mem Aleph Amud Aleph. He writes the vessels of the Mishkan, Klei Mishkan, are not included within the word Mishkan, because it keeps saying in the pasuk, Esa Mishkan ve'Esa Kelav. So obviously there's two separate things. Agaos Ma'asham in Sukkah Mem Aleph says that he heard in the name of Rabbi Akiva Eiger that the Mizbeach is considered a Kli, a vessel, and one is allowed to build it at night. Shaul Tshuvas Beis Yitzchak and Orach Chaim Siman Gimel writes the same. One can't build a Mizbeach at night, and therefore one should cover the knife at night. But Sefer Gur Yehuda, he writes a tshuva to the son of Menachem Zamba Zatzal, Hashem Yikom Damo, that one cannot build the Mizbeach at night, only during the day, like Beis Hamikdash, and based on that, one really shouldn't need to cover the knife at night. Kaf HaChaim, Siman Kuf Pei, Oyster Esvav, he brings another reason from the Mate Moshe. Why is it that we can't leave the knife on the table when one benches? He says the bracha of Yaakov Avinu is mital hashamayim mishpanei haaretz. The bracha of Esav al char becha tichye. So therefore, benching, when you mention birkas haaretz, which is the bracha of Yaakov, you want to cover the knife, which belongs to the blessing of Esav, as he says, "Ki lo yanuach shevet haresha al goral hatzadikim." You don't want to combine the both, the Rasha and the Tzaddik, Esav and Yaakov. The Kaf HaChaim brings another reason, his own. All the letters of the Aleph Beis are found in Birkas Hamazon except for the ending Fei. And the Rokeach in Siman Shin Lamed Vav, the Tashbetz in Siman Shin Tet Vav, they both write that this comes to tell us that the devastating, damaging angels, Af, Shetzef, Ketzef, Enef, Zaf, Negef, Reshef, they all have a Pei Sofit, ending Pei, in their name. They cannot rule in any Seudah that one says Birkas Hamazon with Kavana. That's why we cover the knife, to tell us, to allude to this. The time of Birkas Hamazon, the knife of the Samech Mem, of Satan, cannot rule. Kaf HaChaim brings another reason, because in Birkas Hamazon, we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu that Beis HaMikdash, Yerushalayim, should be already rebuilt. And what's going to happen at that time? The Pasuk says, Lo yisa goy el goy cherev. It's not going to be any more wars, no more swords, and therefore we cover the knife, which is like a sword. When we bench, to allude to that we hope that our request and prayer for the rebuilding of Beis HaMikdash and Yerushalayim should come speedily in our days, and we won't see any more swords. Kaf HaChaim adds another reason from Shar Ruach HaKodesh, from the Arizal, that only a person who is from the root of Cain has to remove the knife off the table at the time that he says Birkas Hamazon. It's not going to be sufficient just to cover it, because weapons belong to the root of Cain. But since the Arizal already says that there's a mixture of all the sparks of people, and we don't know who's from the root of Cain and who's from the root of Hevel, therefore everybody must remove the knife off the table at the time of benching. It's not enough to cover it. And based on that, there's also no difference between weekdays and Shabbos, because one's root doesn't change on Shabbos. And the Kaf HaChaim in Siman Kuf Samech Zayin Ois Mem Aleph has a great chumrah. He says, it seems to me that the right thing to do is never to put the knife on the table from the time you say Amoitzi until after benching, because of the pasuk we quoted before, Ki chal b'cha henafta aleha. And therefore, if one needs a knife, he needs to cut his bread, he needs to cut his meat, says the Kaf HaChaim, so you use them. Keep him somewhere else, not on the table. Keep him on your lap. Keep him somewhere else, not on the table. Use the knife, cut it, and then again, put it somewhere else, not on the table. A tremendous chumrah for Kaf HaChaim, but we find very interesting reasons. Why is it that we need to cover the knife, at least during the day, at least during weekdays, and according to some opinions on Shabbos, and according to some opinions at night as well?